For more information about Channel 4's viewer promise, go to channel4.com/4viewers.
Okay, so that obviously was our response to the new legislation around cookies initially, but actually it's the start of a very different kind of relationship that broadcasters are now able to have with their audiences. Broadcasting was a one-to-many medium. Now it is a medium which increasingly has a return path. What can be done with that return path? Many different things. It will affect the business model, it'll affect the editorial model, it'll affect how we market shows, it'll affect so many things of how we're going to do business in the future. I'm absolutely convinced the next decade will be about broadcasting evolving into a connected era. So we've started on this journey, and what we've been very pleasantly surprised with is the fact that viewers are incredibly excited and interested to engage with Channel 4. We don't have to offer money. We don't have to do anything other than to say, how would you like to engage with our content in new and interesting ways? So we've just introduced something called Scrapbook that allows people to, in a style of Pinterest, to adapt their lifestyle content into their own space. You obviously can watch live Channel 4 streaming now. There are exclusive episodes of your favorite shows you can get in advance. 4OD is becoming increasingly personalized. And all of these things are encouraging people to share their demographic information in the way that was suggested there. And that's opening up a different kind of dialogue with advertising agencies. For me, with someone originally with an advertising background, I always thought it was something of an insult to the medium of television to describe it as a scattergun medium where there was a lot of wastage. Television's always been a very highly targetable medium. It is about to get intensely sensitive to targeting. On 4OD now, you can, as an advertiser, adapt your message in a very, very layered way that competes, I think, with anything that other platforms can provide. You can adapt your message, you can click through, you can pause the show, go to an ad break, you can do all sorts of things as an advertiser. We've already launched 4 behavioral targeting products last year. We introduced another 4 today, and that will be the development of what will happen over the future. Why does that matter? Well, in a sense, 4OD is the breeding ground for how television is evolving, that combination of adaptability of catch-up going into the linear feed. And obviously that is what the environment of connected TV in the context of YouView that will come later this year will provide. But I'm probably almost at the end of my 3 minutes. I could go on, but that'll give you a flavour for what we're doing at Channel 4. Thanks for listening.
But before you go, the hold on a minute question, which is my duty to put to you. I mean, from Paul Lee, we heard that most people don't even know they've got connected TVs and aren't using them. His long-term, not conclusions, because that would be illegal, his long-term guesses is that 90% of viewing would happen within 1.25 days. This does not speak of a connected world at all, but a world that's rather similar to the one we have now.
I think you need to be very careful about the distinction between viewing occurring in a technological environment that is connected versus people thinking they're watching connected television. There's 2 very different things. If the device is connected and is intelligent, it provides an opportunity for the network to know more. We are moving into a metadata connected world where the individual is identified or inferred and the unit of content is connected. And that is revolutionary from the point of view of what broadcasting actually is. And it's very, very exciting. So you've got to parse out the difference between the conscious behavior and the reality of how the technology is working.
Thank you.
Okay.
The viewer is known or inferred. Is there any company in the world who knows more about us than our next speaker from Google? His name is Noah Samuels, and his grand title is Director of Cross Product Solutions. I hope that doesn't include the cameras that poke into my back garden when I'm sunbathing with no clothes on.
I can't respond to that. I'm sorry. I'm from Google. My name is Noah Samuels. I'm the Director of Cross Product Solutions. So what does that mean? I run a bunch of teams that act as the interface between our product and engineering teams, mostly in California, and our sales teams here in the region, looking across all of our ads products from search through to social. So we're, at Google, very much experiencing firsthand a lot of the changes Paul has highlighted in the Deloitte study. And in some cases, we're actually fueling a lot of those changes, particularly in the case of mobile, which he didn't talk about much today because he talked more about TV, and also with YouTube, which is connected to television. So on mobile, with Android, we're seeing something like 850,000 Android-enabled devices being activated every single day now. And what this is driving, and what Paul sort of pointed out, is that when you have more smartphones, more sort of very high capability devices, and higher broadband speeds, you see people consuming media in very different ways. And so on YouTube, for instance, in the US now, and I don't have the exact figure for Europe, so I'm going to use a US stat, something like 1 in 5 video streams is now seen on a mobile device each day versus on the desktop, which is a huge change. If you think about 2 or 3 years ago, trying to play a video on your mobile phone would have been like, press play, maybe it takes half an hour for it to stream in, maybe you see 10 seconds, then you lose your signal, and then you're kind of waiting again. Very, very unpleasant experience. Now 1 in 5 video streams coming from that. On search, the ability now, no matter where you are, to get the answer to that question you have, whether it's, should I buy this thing? Should I buy that? Should I order this piece of food because I've seen a review of this particular dish at the restaurant? You can now find that on your mobile phone, pretty much anywhere you are. And as a result, we've seen searches coming from mobile devices grow by 5 times in the last 2 years. Now something like 1 in 7 searches comes from a mobile device versus from a desktop device. So a huge, huge change there. But in spite of all this change, in spite of all the technology change, the changes in media, et cetera, content still remains sort of the most important part of the whole ecosystem. How people get to the content, which content they choose to consume are changing a bit. And we've all sort of seen that either with our kids or ourselves. But it's still the most important thing. And it's very much the end for which all of this devices and technology are the means. But no matter how good the content is, if the experience of consuming it is crap, so if you can't sort of have an optimized experience in consuming it, you're not going to watch it. And so despite all those stats, one of the things Paul didn't mention on why connected TV isn't really taking off is it's not actually that fun to surf the internet or to watch YouTube via most of those Blu-ray devices or most of those televised smart televisions. So if you're on your mobile phone or you're on your television, if you're trying to sort of view content that's optimized for a desktop or a laptop screen, it's not a very good experience. You're probably going to stop viewing that content no matter how good it is. We even see it on television. So we have YouTube apps on many Blu-ray players, many smart TVs, on Apple TV, on Xbox. On the devices that are not optimized, that have kind of a couple years old, we don't see very much YouTube usage. We don't see very long viewing sessions. On Xbox, where we've sort of launched a new YouTube app into the Xbox, and on Google TV, which isn't available here, but it's in the US, we see viewing sessions start to stretch out because it's now an optimized experience. You can sit back in your living room and you can actually go through videos in a way that is sort of fits with the environment you're in, fits with you sitting on your sofa, fits with you holding a controller that has 3 buttons as opposed to a keyboard. And so it's an amazing thing when that happens. So if you optimize the content for the device, content becomes the key to everything. So to sum up, yes, we're seeing massive changes in devices and media consumption, but content really is the most important part of the media ecosystem, whether it's the old media or new media.
Now, for all your billions, many billions,
not mine.
Are you actually going to invest any of those billions in original content, or are you just going to rip off everybody else's?
I can't answer the second part of the question. Yes, we're investing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in original content on YouTube. We had an event in New York a month ago called Brandcast, where we launched a lot of our new funded channels. We're investing in a huge amount, I think it's $250 million, I'm not sure the exact figure, in original content. And we're just actually now selecting some of those partners in Europe, in the UK and Germany and France. And some of you in the room might be from companies that we're partnering with to develop new original content. And it's quite amazing. You are, yes? We're seeing amazing, amazing quality of content coming through. I really encourage you to go to some of the channels. One in particular, which sort of shows the new model, is a channel called Wigs. And it's produced by the guy who produced Black Swan and one of the directors from some Oscar-winning films. Sorry, I forget the exact names. And it's this series of television shows. They're sort of 6 or 7 minute episodes centered around women. So they're all female characters and they're centered around stories around them. And they have something like 20 different series in the pretty much already filmed. Each series about 15 episodes long, 6 or 7 minutes each episode. And it's quite amazing. It's kind of like snacking episodes as opposed to having to sit down and watch a 22-minute or 30-minute episode on television. You can actually get through an episode in 7 minutes, and you think that fits with our new lifestyle. And the actresses and actors involved are all top-notch. Some actors or actresses from The West Wing, from Twilight series, very, very big names are involved in this. And it's quite amazing to see the quality of the content coming through.
So therefore, very, very brief supplementary, so therefore you are a threat to the life and world of traditional broadcasters?
I wouldn't say that. I'd say we're a partner. We work very closely with almost all the big broadcasters, helping the overall ecosystem develop.
No, thank you very much indeed. Next up, Kate Robertson, UK Group Chairman of Euro RSCG and also a co-founder of One World.
Good evening. Thank you, Ray. The last time I was in this room, I was endeavouring to explain that a sovereign wealth fund is not the same as a private bank account in Zurich. And the Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe went to sleep. So tonight, can you please not sleep? I would just like to refer back to the Deloitte report and the point about television advertising being the most impactful. I completely accept the numbers, would I dare argue, hosted here as we are by Deloitte, but I would also say that in my industry, which is advertising and marketing and public relations and design, you have to understand the nexus between the world of what we used to call old and traditional media like television advertising and what is actually going on in what you might loosely call the digital domain, because television advertising, as impactful as it may be, is then either supported or disemboweled by what you find on the internet. And it is through the search engines that everybody finds the online portal and the online review. And you all know that, you don't need me to tell you that. But it's vital to understand these things. I still find in London, even in the so-called creative communities, a little bit of an adversarial point between traditional television advertising and what goes on the internet. And it is not adversarial. In our business, for us to get to the future, we have to understand this nexus point. So David will know and Noah will know lots more about this numerically than I do. But I do know that when it comes to return on investment, as brilliant as television can be, television advertising in terms of return on investment on Google is absolutely fabulous. You may be spending less of your dollars on Google, but the return is fabulous. However, the return on investment on Facebook, I believe, is even higher. Who knew? I didn't. I found that out 2 weeks ago. So a difficult thing if you come from my industry, because my industry really, I know very kindly said to me earlier, we need you, we need the ad agencies. What do they need from us? They need our money, or our clients' money. They need us to spend with them. But they are not nearly so challenged for their survival as are we. We are challenged, we have been challenged these last 25 years. One of the industry's greats in the room today here, MT Rainey. But the changes MT and I have seen over the last 20 years in the way we make money in advertising is something that's just breathtaking. We used to get 15% of our clients' media money. We probably get 2% today. That's what we're living with. And then we've got to deal with all the stuff that's coming in from Google and Facebook. However, last couple of points. As difficult as that is for us, the question then becomes, who does the creating? Noah ended on a point about content. We create, say, a television advertisement or something that you might see on a Google or a Facebook, but we have to charge for that. We almost got to a point where we could charge by the hour. But what we are facing now, our future as advertising as being one of the revenue streams for the great media industry. Our future is, I won't say it's in peril, but we are challenged, and here's why. A lot of my company and certainly our competitors are legacy, what we used to call in tech world, and you've heard the expression IBM legacy systems. We have lived a legacy life, and large parts of our creative legacy agencies are going out of business or will die. And they will die because we don't know how to make money. But to tell you what, something, as much as journalists worry about free content on Huffington Post, we have to worry about where clients get creative ideas from. We've just bought a fabulous company and a profitable one in the United States who source their creative product digitally, and they don't hire those people. Their best creators are well paid, but they don't actually hire those people. That is something, MT, I don't know about you, but 20 years ago, we weren't imagining a thing like that. So for us, our very survival depends on our understanding of the future of media. And the future of media for us absolutely has to be about understanding how an impactful TV commercial lives with what goes on digitally. And the most important understanding about consumers and the digital world is this. It is not so much that we move into digital world to find the positive. The denizens of social media world find their power and their influence when they go negative. When they don't like you, when there is something bad about you, they just take down a Mubarak, but equally they take down the product and the advertising you have so carefully been creating, whether you were paid for it or not.
Okay, just before you, very impassionedly, but very briefly, you say that the return on investment for Google is very good compared with television, and Facebook even more spectacular. Could it then become more rational for you to work for them and not support the likes of Channel 4?
No, because my point about the nexus is you absolutely have to have both. And when you look at the big events like the Arab Spring, what you see there is the relationship between traditional media and actually social media. Social media wasn't the whole story, but what I will say with Google, as I said to Noah earlier, as wonderful as you are, it would be grand if you stopped hiring every single creative talent in the whole world and paying them 9 times what the rest of us can. It would be really good.
Great, Robertson. Thank you very much indeed. And this may feel a bit like the tail gunner speaker, but to some extent he is. But I speak and introduce him as a recidivist, unrepentant journalist and newspaperman. Please, Chris Blackhurst, editorial director of The Independent and the Evening Standard, please tell us there's some goddamn future for newspapers to cheer us all up.
Yes, all sorts of analogies are used about this moment, that I'm the sort of silent movie producer as Hollywood's discovering sound, or I'm the steam train driver just as electric's coming in, and all those things, all those images haunt me every day of my life. I was recently asked by a group of management consultants, not Deloitte. I have to say that loud and clear. It wasn't Deloitte. It was in fact McKinsey. And McKinsey said to me, they were looking at newspapers and where they were going and the future of newspapers. And they said, Chris, can we go back to the 1960s? And I said, what for? And they said, well, that's when newspapers were at their height. First thought in my mind was, how much are we paying for this? Extraordinary. So I said, well, by all means. And they said, well, we can look at delivery. And in the 1960s, we had paper boys and a few paper girls. There was one commercial TV channel. And the Daily Express, bless it, was selling 4.5 million copies every day and was the biggest selling paper in the English-speaking world. Roll on to 2012, and of course parents don't like sending their kids out anymore in the dark in the mornings. We don't do that sort of thing. Very few. There are hundreds of commercial TV channels, and the circulation of all newspapers has slumped. I am here as a representative of the dead tree press. But are we dead? Absolutely not. I mean, what I've been listening to there is quite interesting, because slightly makes me angry, because really what we do is actually provide the content. The fact it's in paper form, it's from where I sit, is neither here nor there. Google does not provide content that people trust. This is slightly inflammatory remarks, but when people want news, they turn to newspapers, they turn to news organisations, they turn to organisations like The Independent and The Evening Standard. And if you turn on the TV every morning, you will see a group of people sitting around a table on Sky News, on BBC News 24 and ITV Breakfast News. They'll be actually studying the newspapers. If you turn on the TV late at night, on Newsnight, you will see Jeremy Paxman looking at the following morning's papers. The people who are on those shows, a lot of them are newspaper journalists. A lot of the ideas that the BBC and Channel 4 take and ITV start with newspapers. It's true, David. It's true. It's true. And what we do is we provide the content. And what we have to do is make it work. And what I have at the Independent Evening Standard, I've got 320 journalists. They're trained, they're experienced, they're brilliant, they're highly creative. And, I defer to David, but I don't think Channel 4's got 320 news journalists. What we also provide is trust. People trust us. It's all very well people blogging and putting things on Twitter and saying they've just seen this or that and they think there's been a shooting somewhere, but until it's actually reported with a proper reputable brand name next to it, whether it's ourselves, the Times, the Telegraph, the Guardian, and until it's got a name that people recognise that's actually reporting it, nobody believes it. And that's what we do. And so I'd say that we're far from dying. We've actually got a great future, because the word that's being lost in all this is actually news. And if you take the paper bit out, well, I'm not sure about papers, but we've got tablets, which could be our salvation. We've certainly got the internet, obviously. And we've also got new ways of distributing newspapers. You take the Evening Standard. The Evening Standard was selling, on a good day, about 130,000 copies every day. This afternoon, right now, it's just finished handing out 730,000 copies. At Holborn Station, on a good day, it was selling about 400 copies. This afternoon, they will just finished handing out 16,000 copies.
But I just have to prod the economics a bit. I mean, there's going to be 100. According to Deloitte, there's going to be 100 million new tablets sold this year. That's terrific. But are you going to charge for your product on the tablets? Has the Times actually? Is it slowly getting it right by putting a paywall up rather than throwing away all this wonderful journalism for nothing?
Well, we are charging. Our app is. I mean, there is an issue there, and I actually think that I think the industry took some very bad decisions. I mean, one of the problems in newspapers, as you know, Ray, is that collectively...
Falling management.
We are extremely badly managed industries, dare I say it, by a lot of former journalists who think they can manage, including myself. But as a industry, there's very little collectivity. I mean, we're extremely fragmented. None of the proprietors trust each other. They've all got huge egos. And from the very beginning, instead of getting together in a room like this and thrashing out what they were going to do and actually agreeing that all content from recognised newspapers would be charged, they allowed it to be free. That was mistake number one. It's then been replicated down the years as we've gone on. So there's no strategy. I don't think any two organisations have got the same strategy, same approach, same pricing. We are charging for our app. It's ridiculous. I'll say this loudly. It's very cheap, ridiculously cheap. It's £9.99 a month. The Independent costs £1.20 a day. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why we're doing that. Other people are doing similar things. We have to get the pricing right. If we can, and in time, I think we will get there, I hope.
Chris Blackhurst, thank you very much.
Great.
And before bringing in the audience, I think I ought to give a right reply to Noah from Google, who was accused yet again of ripping off other people's content and not having news that can be trusted on your system. I think that's a rough summary of what Mr. Blackhurst said.
We don't knowingly rip any content off, as far as I know, and we certainly take down anything people want us to take down.
Are you do you offer news that can be trusted? It's properly checked and verified.
We do, because the news we do offer on things like Google News comes from reputable news sources. possibly like Mr. Blackhurst and lots of others.
Sorry, we're back in the loop again, ripping people off again. Sorry. Slightly seriously, do you have journalists who check any information that you disseminate or not?
No, we don't have journalists.
None at all.
There you go.
No.
In a related point, it should be said, joking aside, that in all the public attitude surveys, notwithstanding it may only be 8 or 10 stories that a TV bulletin can cover a night, the public are trusting television news more than print news. They're using it for something else. They're using it for understanding, and all of the surveys repeatedly demonstrate that the public trust what they hear on Channel 4 News and on BBC News differently to what they read in the newspaper. That's not to say that we don't want a very vibrant press, but they recognise that the press is full of opinion and it's full of gossip and it's full of...
And I've got one extra word to add to you, Leveson.
Didn't take long before that came up. Yeah, there's a certain truth in that, but I'd also say that for a paper like The Independent, I think people do trust The Independent, and I come back to this. I like Channel 4 News. I love Channel 4 News, but if you're only getting 8 or 10 items, we do 100. We do 150 stories a day.
We're reaching 11 million people a week with the Channel 4 News. So, if in terms of media plurality and freedom of speech and democracy and understanding, which are all the things that public service broadcasting is here to deliver, there is a tremendous value that's being provided by even so-called niche bulletins like the Channel 4 News. And in scale, they dwarf what even the broadsheet newspapers deliver on a
No, I don't dispute that, but I think you're slightly missing the point. What I'd say is it's all very well providing 8 or 10 stories to millions of people every day. We're providing 150 stories. If you want to read things in depth and actually want to read 8 pages on England's match with Sweden tomorrow and the tactics they're going to deploy, if you want to read about the Arab Spring...
You're doing 8 pages on that?
Oh, I know, yeah.
Sorry, enough is enough.